Dundee, the city of discovery, has a long history of exploring new frontiers. The University of Dundee is continuing this pioneering spirit. We're on a mission to explore some of the greatest challenges facing society, including diseases like Parkinson's.
Parkinson's is a disorder of the brain. It's a condition in which patients first realise they have it because of changes in their movement, usually a shakiness. And they generally find that their bodies become more stiffer. We now know that that is due to a loss of brain cells deep within the brain that make a chemical called dopamine. If we don't have dopamine, then our movements are affected, and that's really what the disease is. So it's a process that affects the early loss and progressive loss of these cells, giving rise to symptoms.
At the moment, we have very good understanding of the symptoms of Parkinson's disease, and we know what treatments can be used to mask some of these symptoms, like the tremors, but we have no understanding at the moment of what really causes the disease. This is one of the last frontiers of medical research, that no one's yet, achieved this.
Today, there are over 12,000 people in Scotland living with Parkinson's. It can have the most devastating impact on people's lives.
I think it was about 15 years before I was diagnosed, but it was only until I actually tried to play a piano when I found out about my Parkinson's, because my left hand actually used to work as I was used to, and the right hand actually didn't do anything. It was completely impossible to control it. I typically say Parkinson's is a life sentence and not a death sentence, so this is the positive thing. The negative thing is it affects your life quite dramatically. Also on the negative side is you actually don't know what's going to happen, how it will deteriorate.
My wife was diagnosed with Parkinson's in early 2014. It wasn't a surprise because she'd had shaking and that before. Initially you wonder what happens.
I was first diagnosed after I started noticing that I had some problems running. I was a very keen long distance runner. I had recently completed the New York Marathon and I was training for the Edinburgh Marathon. And after 2 or 3 miles or so, my right leg started to not want to move forward.
Every day that the Parkinson's puzzle remains unsolved is a day that people with Parkinson's have to wait for better treatments.
My interest in Parkinson's started off at a very early age. So my dad developed Parkinson's when he was a young man, and I grew up in a house that had Parkinson's in there, and I saw the impact that disease had on my dad over time and the impact it had on the family. I was always interested in research, but moved over to Parkinson's research 3 or 4 years ago, and that's my motivation really, to try and make a difference.
I first knew about Parkinson's disease when I was a child. My grandfather had Parkinson's disease. I suppose that was the time I really realised that medical research was important.
This neurodegenerative disease is an especially complex puzzle. It was first identified in 1817, and over 200 years later, the puzzle remains unsolved. Medicine has changed beyond all recognition in the past 50 years, but the way that Parkinson's is treated has remained exactly the same.
As much as we now know about Parkinson's disease, as much as their puzzle pieces coming together, we still don't have a test for diagnosis, we have no means of predicting who will develop the disease, and we have no means of a cure.
I see patients now with Parkinson's, the best drugs that I can offer them are 50 years old. Whereas if I look at other colleagues that I studied at medical school with, some of the people that are in oncology, in cardiology, they're offering treatments that are different to what I was taught at medical school, 30 years ago. For me, the burning passion is to make a difference that's going to help the people that I see in the clinic and change the way that I tell people about Parkinson's, because I've been saying the same thing to them, that it's an untreatable disease. I'm waiting for that moment to say, you have a disease, but we can actually do something about it in a meaningful way would be great.
Thousands of people living with Parkinson's suffer from a disabling tremor, but new and life-changing treatments are on the horizon. Currently, the only effective treatment for tremors is invasive surgery. It is thanks to our generous supporters that we are able to bring a pioneering treatment to Dundee through the purchase of an MRI-guided focus ultrasound scanner. the first of its kind in Scotland and only second in the UK. This new scanner will enable non-surgical treatments that can stop tremors and transform people's day-to-day lives.
So this is a new technology, and it uses high-frequency ultrasound to create very small lesions within the deep parts of the brain, which affects people with Parkinson's. And what's remarkable about this treatment is that it has the same therapeutic effect as the main alternative, which is a treatment called deep brain stimulation. And this is going to profoundly affect my practice and my day-to-day management of people with Parkinson's and tremor disorders, because ultimately we can treat these patients as a day case. We can treat them without any need for anaesthetic assessment and without any need for a scalpel. It's hugely exciting. I mean, I've seen the procedure done, and for the patient who had it, it was very emotive, because they go from being dependent upon their family members through to being able to be independent at things which you or I take for granted, which is being able to feed yourself or dress yourself or do all the things that, again, that normal movement is required for.
Parkinson's disease is an absolutely horrible condition, but it's one that I believe we should be able to solve within the next decade. We need to understand the underlying principles and things that go wrong in brain cells to be able to know how to tackle it properly.
I think in Dundee we have an incredible amount of expertise in basic fundamental biology. We have most of the pieces of the jigsaw in Dundee already here with additional support, especially to maybe recruit 2 or 3 leading experts to Dundee. We could really make even a bigger difference.
There are the right kind of people, the right environment, patient collaborations and interactions. And we have already so much momentum, and we just need to keep going.
To see and experience the commitment is fantastic. They live for searching for a cure. That is fabulous.
It would be tremendous if there was some treatment for Parkinson's, because at the moment the only medication is controlling the effects. So I'm optimistic about what they're doing here at Dundee, that in the end there will be something to offset the problems.
Along the way, our scientists have solved problems that others said were unsolvable, and they have kept going when others would have turned back. These breakthroughs could have only happened in Dundee, where discovery is part of our DNA, and where excellent teaching hospitals sit alongside world-class research facilities. Our researchers have the passion and the experience, but solving a puzzle as complex as Parkinson's requires significant resources. Our generous supporters play a vital part in our mission to transform lives.
Well, we get donations from many sources. Obviously, we get big donations from the big medical charities like the Wellcome Trust, the Michael J. Fox Foundation, and so on. But what I think is really nice about more personalised and individual donations is actually they tend to be more flexible in terms of what you can do with them. And to have funding which you can use in a very reactive way is incredibly valuable. You may suddenly make an observation where you want to reactively take a new strand of research. And it's usually the private donation which gives you that flexibility to use it quickly and reactively to really follow up on new observations.
If you can see a future where the puzzle of Parkinson's is finally solved, where better treatments exist, and lives are no longer devastated by this terrible disease, then please help us to discover that future, support the University of Dundee, and help fund our Parkinson's research. Thank you.